Okay, so basically we're going to receive one of these. What I've done is remove the wires. Which wires do we need to remove? Well, let's go back over here. It says all we need is D3, D2, D1, and D0, and the black wire, the red wire, let's ignore that wire. Desolder all the wires except for that. So what I did was I went through and basically removed one of these one by one. Just heat it up and basically made sure that it didn't short. Then we're left with D0, D1, D2, D3, as well as the ground wire. Okay, so that's what we're left with now. Now what I'm also going to do is I'm going to put some heat shrink here, and I'm going to put heat shrink on each one of these wires. Happen to be using yellow, but use whatever color is available in your lab kit. Alright, there we go. So we have heat shrink on all of the leads that are remaining. Then I'm going to start soldering it to this header. Oh man, now you can see I was shopping. Well, it doesn't matter. Let's see here. So D3 is TMS, and let's pull up a board. Here's a board, right? So here's a board. And the connector is going to go here except for VCC aux. So let's see if we can zoom in a little bit. Okay. And you can see this is a used connector. So what I'm going to do is apply solder to the connector. Just tin the tips, or tin the, what do you call it? The connector. Now we know the black wire is connected to ground, so we're going to match up the connector ground, hold it until it's there. Now let's see here, the yellow wire according to this comes from D1 off this connector. D1 says it's TDI, so we're going to tack it onto the TDI pin on the board. Okay, so now the orange wire says it is D0. D0, according to this hardware setup, says TCK. We're going to match TCK. TCK is down here. Green wire is D2, and it's TDO. So TDO, match it with essentially what's written on the owl board. This is TDO. And I actually don't want that heat shrink nearby because the heat will obviously shrink it. And then the last connector is this brown one, which there's only one more option. Let's tack it on. Okay. Looks like they're on there. And then what I could do is bring the heat shrink onto these. Okay. But I wouldn't do that until I make sure that the connection is good. So what I'm going to do, I'll just leave it on for now. And I'll bring this mouse and camera setup back to over here. So it looks like I need to zoom out. Okay, so there we go. We got the connector made. We got to test it. So we got our owl board here. There's two things that we need to do. Move the camera closer. What I need to do is plug this into the computer. Remember, the black lead goes to ground on this side of the board, so I'll plug the programmer in. Then I'll plug the programmer into the computer. Okay. And then I will plug in the board as well. Now let's bring up the programmer. So let's see. I'm going to do position 0, and the file I want to program to the board is going to be the BST bit file. It might be your top file or whatever you want to call it. Okay, so if it's successful, what should happen is you should see that the message target device X6SOX9TQG144, DNA is your device DNA, and it says done, USB transactions, and it leaves the board program with 4 lights. This is the programming file you'd use to basically program to your non-volatile memory. But I just used the file as a test to see whether your board, the board would actually program. So now that we know that the connector works, our connector works, what we could do is make sure these are, the heat shrink is over these connectors, and then we'll take it to our heat gun. I have a heat gun, but it's not here. We'll just heat shrink the connector, and we should be fine. And don't forget to also heat shrink this guy for some strain relief. Okay, so that's how we make our FT232H programmer instead of having to pay $40, actually $59 for this cable right here. But the problem with it now is that we do need to use the external xc3sprog. Remember, you put this, if you plug this into your computer, you plug it in at your own risk. Remember, you were the one who built this. Hopefully there's no shorts. Hopefully you don't introduce any shorts through the rest of the class, but that is how that's how to build the cable, as well as how to use the xc3sprog. Remember, xc3sprog is available from the course website, as well as the bit file.